Hello, I'm here to talk about the review for the DuoSharp Diamond Knife Sharpening System. This one comes on a nice mount with rubber feet, so you can easily sharpen your knives on a table, countertop. Comes in two grits, the fine and the extra fine. The fine is 600 grit and the extra fine is 1200 grit. I also ordered the DMT coarse grit. So it's just a 6-inch one compared to the 8-inch, and it's 325 grit. This is when something is really dull or damaged, and you can do a little more grinding, taking off more material with this stone. Still, jury's out still on how great this works. First couple knives I did, I didn't think it was razor sharp, and I found out that cheap kitchen knives, it's hard to get them razor sharp. But if you start getting into quality knives, it's a different story. For example, one of my really good knives it's from Moringa, Iowa. It's called Custom Cutlery, and this is a really nice fillet knife. And I was able to get this pretty sharp. In other words, I could cut paper like they do in the ads to show you how sharp it is. I could cut the paper. I couldn't do that with any of the kitchen knives. They would not cut paper. I found out if you got really good quality knives, you can get them sharper. For instance, this Kamikato. This is one of the sharpest knives I've ever seen. It's a Japanese knife. It's a chef's knife. And this thing you don't want to mess with because it will cut you really easily. So I haven't tried this on the DMT sharpening stone, but this one is sharp enough to slice through paper without difficulty, just like the ads show. This one is razor sharp, and it's only sharpened on one side, so it's a right-handed knife. But this is near the top. This is a $700 knife, which you can actually get on eBay for about 120 bucks. But Amazon, I think, still sells it for 700 bucks. 8-inch chef knife. So the fact is, in your normal kitchen knives, you're going to get them sharp, but they're not going to be razor sharp as they talk about. And it takes a little bit of technique, takes a little bit of practice. That's what I'm going to go over with you next. Okay, now to demonstrate how to use the DMT DuoSharp system. Like I said, it has two sides to it. This side I have now is the fine grit 600. It's a diamond surface with little holes in it to absorb the filings as you do it. That's why there's little holes. We're going to try one of my kitchen. This is a Chicago Cutlery chef knife, and it's a little bit sharp. It's not great. I couldn't cut any paper with it. And I'm not sure if we'll get that sharp doing it, but it will tear paper, but it will not really cut paper. It kind of tears the paper. So let's try it. Having the 8-inch sharpening stone is nice. You can do the big knives. You can get by with a 6-inch or smaller for just small knives. So you want to put a few drops of water, they say, to just wet the surface. It helps it to disperse the filings. And you want a 20-degree angle for most household kitchen knives. They said there's a little cheat that you can do by putting 2 quarters on the surface. 2 quarters puts it at about a 20-degree angle. Gives you an idea of where to start if you've never done that. You could start with 90 degrees here, then drop down to 45 degrees, then drop down to your 20 degrees. So that can be a guide, they say, and you can even leave them on there while you're doing it. You go into the knife, you don't go away from, you go into the knife blade, this cutting surface, and you got to try and maintain that 20 degrees the whole time. So you lock your wrist and you do a 6 to 10 okay, on that side. Then we're going to switch, come the other direction, do the other side of the blade. Trying to get my 20 degrees in. Okay, so that's the fine grit, and it feels like it's gotten a little bit sharper now. So now I'll flip it over. To do that, you just flip this upside down, and then you have little tabs that you squeeze together, and it pops out. Then you can slide out the blade. You flip it over to the other grit. And we're ready to do this side. Okay, now we've got the fine, extra fine grit, 1200 grit. We have to wet the surface again with a few drops of water. It's a little bit wet. Get your 20 degree angle. I don't think it'll cut paper, but it feels sharper. When you wipe it off, you're actually supposed to rinse this underwater. You'll see a little bit of the metal filings that actually, so you know you remove some material. It gets sharp by removing material, and the thinner it gets on the blade, the sharper it is. I highly doubt this will cut paper. So let's try it. It does kind of cut paper. Okay. A little bit of tearing now. There's some tearing there. It's not the smooth cut like the Japanese knife, but it did make it sharper because I couldn't cut paper before. So it didn't take a lot of strokes. They say that the diamond cutting sharpeners can sharpen way faster than the normal stones, like the Arkansas stone. You may do 10 strokes versus 50 strokes with the other type of sharpeners. So I need to do a lot more on my knives to test it out, but it does seem to sharpen them, but I wouldn't say every knife gets razor sharp, so I have a little more work to do. Videos I've watched is they recommend a honing sharpener to use at the end. These are to hone, in other words, to realign the fibers, the grooves, just lightly realign them, so you do the same 20 degree angle when you come down, and just do a couple times on each side just to realign the grooves. Some people solely use these kind of sharpeners when their knives are fairly sharp, just to touch them up a little bit. Also, if you've got your knives pretty sharp in your kitchen or shop, you can just use the extra fine to touch them up a little bit to keep them sharp. Haven't tried chisels or things from the wood shop yet, but these are supposed to be really good for sharpening those as well. And sometimes with a chisel that's a little more coarse, you may start with the 325 grit, the coarse pad, the blue one. They're all color coded with DMT. They look to be well made though. We'll see over time how well these work. Now we'll test them by seeing how well they cut through watermelon, baby watermelon, and tomato. Well, let's start the tip in there first. Hope the watermelon's good. Let's see. Smaller pieces are easy to cut. Not bad, not bad. Let's see what that Iowa custom cutlery does. About the same. Now the real test, I always have problems cutting tomatoes. Even a dull knife will not cut a tomato skin. So let's see how the tomato does. Oh, like butter. That's nice. Try the Chicago cutlery. Not quite as good. Had to work its way through. But not bad. For some reason I couldn't get this fillet knife very sharp. This is a Rapala fillet knife. I think it's pretty cheap steel. It's bendable, so when you're filleting fish, but it just doesn't feel that sharp to me. It took a little bit to get through. I'm not impressed with the fillet knife, but yeah, it probably is a really cheap steel because you can get these so cheap when you buy them. Okay, summary after I've tried sharpening about 15 knives. It is true, the quality of the knife makes a big difference. These little cheap paring knives just can't get a really good edge on them, not real sharp. I pulled out these other Japanese made knives that say high carbon stainless steel, and once I sharpen these, they are razor sharp. They can cut paper all day. So, by the way, paper cutting is not good for your knives, it actually dulls them. So then I talked about this Rapala that I couldn't get a sharp at all. I've tried and tried and tried. And this is a different color steel. I got another Rapala that's darker steel, and it says stainless steel right on it. This one I got razor sharp. This one I just can't do much with it. I think it's just a cheap steel. So the kind of knife steel that you use makes a huge difference. And remember, after you've sharpened it on the sanding block, make sure you do a couple swipes straight down with this could be a grooved steel honing rod. You can use diamond too, but steel is just fine. Just do a couple times like that, and it straightens out the curve, the grooves on the blade, and gets it real sharp. So after we're doing a bunch of them, really cheap knives don't work so well, but good knives you can get a razor sharp edge. So thanks for watching.